I thought about that song in Our People when I was over at Cannon de Chelly, and I always thought about The Longest Walk and about, you know, the kind of trail of tears that you guys, that you people had to go through also. So let me see, this, I sound like I'm in a canyon, I guess, from up here. I don't know how it sounds out there. I'm going to do a little test, because then the flute kind of sounds like in a canyon too. Okay, I may have gotten it cracked. This poem is called Emergence. We have different points of emergence in our lives. When we're born, we're emerging from one world into this one. When we pass from this world, we emerge from this world into the next world. And then we have points in our life that we emerge from one knowing into another, from one song into another. And this is about one of those points of emergence when I left. I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then I left to go to Indian boarding school in Santa Fe when the Institute of American Indian Arts was still mostly a high school at the old Santa Fe Indian School campus. And so then I went back home. I gave birth to my son back in Tahlequah at the Hastings Hospital, the Indian Hospital. And then I came back out here. And I went to UNM. And I kind of lived in New Mexico. I always leave. I'm in Oklahoma a lot. And I'll probably be living between two places again. And lived in Hawaii for 11 years. And worked in LA for a little while. But I always come back to this part of the world. But the time I went to LA, I always said, you got to watch the word never. The word never is very, very powerful. Because I've noticed that any time I've said never, it always happens. And the rule of never lives right next door to the rule of judgment. When you point your fingers at somebody and say something about them, or next thing you know, or you judge somebody, next thing you know, you're going to be exactly in that spot. So that rule, the rule of judgment and the rule of never, live right next door to each other. Well, I said I would never live in LA. So one day there I was in this little apartment right off Hollywood Boulevard, where the Spice Girls would go up and down in a double-decker bus. And I kept thinking of saying the word never. And I was living in this apartment building with people from all over South America and everywhere who had also said they would never live in LA. And so I was there in this little place. It was a big change in my life. It's midsummer night. The light is skinny. A thin skirt of desire skims the earth. Dogs bark at the musk of other dogs and the urge to go wild. I am lingering at the edge of a broken heart, striking relentlessly against the flint of hard will. It's coming apart. Everyone knows it. So do squash erupting in flowers the color of the sun. So does the momentum of grace, gathering allies in the partying mob. The heart knows everything. I remember when there was no urge to cut the land or each other into pieces, when we knew how to think in beautiful. There is no world like the one surfacing. I smell it as I pace in my square room. The neighbor's television entering my house by waves of sound make me think about buying a new car, another kind of cigarette, when I don't need another car. And I don't even smoke cigarettes. A human mind is small when thinking of small things. It is large when embracing the maker of walking, thinking, and flying. If I can locate the sense beyond desire, I will not eat or drink until I stagger into the earth with grief. I will locate the point of dawning and awaken with the longest day in the world. I decided to read this one because I'm out here. And I'm blessed with grandchildren. I had my first grandchild when I was in my 30s, somewhere in my 30s. But that's not unusual, I don't think, for a lot of us. But I like that because it gives me a lot of energy with them. And so this one was when I have a granddaughter, my granddaughter Desiree was born, and I was dreaming about her last night too. And I wrote her a poem, and I remember sitting to write this poem, and I was sitting in San Antonio by the river. And, you know, that whole time of... And too, I was thinking a lot about the future. I guess you always do when you think about grandchildren. And then when you get older, it's interesting. You get different levels of vision. Like when you're small, when you're really young, the day takes forever and everything is so... You see sound, you can see what people are thinking, and you're still close to those beautiful spirits where we come from. And so you still see like that. You know, when you hold a newborn in your hands, they still remember. And you see that, it's seeing, and they still remember that beauty, and they come in here with that. And then we start getting into this other kind of mind, and so on. And I was thinking about all of that. And I was thinking about how when a woman is pregnant, it's not just her being pregnant, it's the father, and it's the family, everybody. It's not, and then you think about whose family. Well, it's also anybody that the pregnant person is around. So it's really important to be kind, you know, to speak good things, to sing, and, you know, and in every tribe, every group has their things to do and not to do, to ensure that, so that we're saying we're making a good path for you. You know, we want you, and we're making a good path for you, and so on. So when my daughter was pregnant with this girl, and then, you know, as a grandparent, I guess there's different ways of seeing, and you get older. That's the part I was forgetting. Every time you get a little older, then you see more. I mean, there's other levels, and then when you get to be a grandparent, you start making connections that you never made when you were younger, or when you're in your 20s and you're working so hard to get your education, your teens and 20s and 30s to make a family. You know, it's very demanding. It's very, very demanding, and you're in a certain kind of mind, and then you get a little older, and then your mind turns in a way that starts making these connections, and you get a little older, and you're going back into that rainbow house, or that place where we come from, and your mind starts remembering and going in that direction again. At least that's what I think. That's my perception of it. So when my daughter was pregnant with this granddaughter, I saw a lot of things around this girl. And there were things that were happening here, so I wanted to read this one this is a little prose piece, and then I'll read the poem, which is kind of half prophecy, half poem, but it's a poem for her. This is called The Appearance of the Sacred Was Not Likely. In the months before the birth of my third granddaughter, a Navajo deity appeared to a blind woman who lived far away from the cities in a distant part of the reservation. This was an unusual occurrence, something unheard of in recent history. And this is my version, what I heard when I was living in Albuquerque. Such visits come about historically only in times of terrible stress, when people have lost the way. The deity explained, and also this granddaughter is half Navajo, that's the other part. This deity explained that the people were in danger, and that unless they kept up the traditions that made them particularly Navajo, a complex and beautiful system of prayer and thanksgiving,